stand for our national anthem. Thank you, Honor Guard. This is the retired Veterans Honor Guard. This Guard has served our society and our community for the last many, many years. They do over 250 funerals per year in honor of our deceased veterans at no cost to the public and all gratuity. So we'd like to thank them for all their service. Thank you. Anything else we have, Honor Guard? This is it for the Honor Guard. We don't have anything else, right? Okay, dismissed.
Thank you.
Okay, this second thing on the program, we've had some people here this morning. You'll have to hear a little bit of this similar thing for this afternoon as this morning. Before we get into the program, we've got a lot of Shriners here, and we want to let them say a word or two. Just to summarize the Shriners real quickly, this is the 13th Shrine Fest and the 4th air show for a Shrine Fest. We might have them a little quiet in the hallway. And the last 4 years have been air shows. These men are volunteers, and women are good volunteers, but we've shown that men can be volunteers as well. You need to close the doors over there. So these men have made this happen. I've met with most of the many of the air crew over the last 2 days. They said Evansville has been the nicest they've run into. So this is a face of our city. We have the mayor here as well, but they give us good face time. Those pilots have been a little everywhere, but they say Evansville's been one of the nicest, if not the nicest, host city that they've run into. That's because these Shriners are out there at the airport making these guys happy. So our hats are off to them for making this happen. From left to right, Randy Eads, Paul Egbert, illustrious potentate, Danny Schuler, and our hospital man, Jack Mitchell. He's in charge. He's got a yellow jacket, and that means a lot. It's very symbolic. And then we have Dale. Okay, and then we've got some others hiding around here somewhere, but I don't know where they all are. But anyway, very important, that yellow jacket in the middle. Yellow jacket, the Shrine has 22 hospitals in the United States. These guys take care of 9 counties in southwestern Indiana. With the 9 counties, any kid that's less than 18 years of age has a cleft palate, has a orthopedic problem, or has a burn. They go there. They don't charge them any money. Okay, these people a lot of times don't have anything, but that's a tremendous thing. They have a $10 billion endowment, but they use $750 million a year in taking care of these kids. So These guys do it in this yellow jacket. They're the hospital board. They go to St. Louis, go to Cincinnati, and Chicago, and take a lot of patients there. The other person in the center is Danny Shooter, and he's the second potentate, or one of the first two potentates ever to be a child in the Shriners Hospital, and now the potentate. That never happened. It's only happened. This is the second time it's ever happened. There's one other that just happened. Danny Shooter was told he couldn't walk ever. And he looks like he's walking pretty well to me now, but he was told that at a young age, and he spent a lot of time in the St. Louis Shriner Hospital from a young age to about age 16. And then in 1978, after he was told he couldn't walk, he was the gold medal winner of motorcycle cross country in Europe in 1970. Gold medal. It's equivalent to a gold medal in the Olympics. So from not walking to win the motorcycle award, that's pretty big. We wouldn't have any of this without all these gentlemen up here. They are men volunteers, and they do a lot for this city. Danny and maybe Paul.
Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to kind of officially thank all of you for everything that you've done for our country and for the world as veterans. You've made it possible for us to be able to do what we do here on the riverfront at Evansville. I want to just kind of introduce the guys, what they actually do for the festival. Dale Thomas is Director of PR Marketing, and Randy Eads is the Assistant Chairman of the entire festival. So these guys are a big part of our board of directors that puts on the festival here for a year. I want to put out a special thanks to a guy that's in the room. I didn't know he was coming, glad he's here. It's the mayor of our town. Without the support of the mayor, the city garage, all the city employees, we couldn't even possibly do this. So thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate it. We are very blessed and very fortunate to have the Evansville Riverfront to present this to you all. I hope you enjoy your afternoon. We look forward for all of you having a good time today. And once again, thank you for your service to our country. And with that, I'd like to introduce the illustrious Sir and Potentate of Haughty Shriners, Dan Shooter.
I want to thank you, and I'll keep this short because I know you've got a little busy schedule here, Doc. And let's give Dr. Browning a hand for help doing this. Fantastic. I just want to thank the city of Evansville again. We're very proud to be part of that, this riverfront, and all the people that come down here to support the Shriners. And like Dr. Browning was talking about, the yellow jacket, we take care of children. We do around 80 to 90,000 miles a year to transporting our kids back and forth to the hospitals. So I know what it means to me. Jack, how many trips? 400? 200 trips that the man is taking kids back and forth. I'm sitting at 175, so maybe if I get his age, I might be able to get a few more. Yeah. So just want to thank you guys for your service, your support of this organization, and also to the Shriners and the city of Evansville. And I want to thank you, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A couple other things we need to do before we go any further, before we get on with the program. I wanted to, first of all, Mayor and his beautiful wife are here. Thank you for coming, Mayor Lloyd Winn and Kid Carroll. Thank you. We have the manager of the airport here, and he's had a real easy day the last few days. Doug Jost, I'm sure he's had a lot of sleep. He looks pretty good for being in that job right now. And then the sponsors here, Platinum sponsors, the Old National Bank, Southern Indiana Building Trades, National Electrical Contractors, Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Brownie Genealogy, and then gold sponsors, United Association of Plumbers, Dunn Hospitality, Silver and Empty Deli, Villa Lords, a new condo going up downtown, Anonymous Friend, and then there's a new one on the bottom here. It's called the Iron Workers Local 103. And on the bottom, which you can't read, That's our mission statement for the Freedom Heritage Museum. It says, World War II changed Evansville, and Evansville changed the world. That's what our mission's about. We've got a lot of the directors here today. I'd like them to stand up and I'll introduce them. First, Richard. Richard Littoff is our president. Can't say enough good about Richard. He's been working this for 4 years, blood, sweat, and tears. In hard times and in easy times, he's right there. So if he wouldn't have started this, it wouldn't be going. And he's a force behind the motion. So thank you, Richard. He's a president. He's our leader. And we have a vice president here named Dick Kuhn right over there. And he's been on board for over a year. And thanks for all the leadership. And I'm the treasurer and the collections officer, and we have other people here. And don't let me miss anybody this time. But we have Donna Bone, if she's around, or she might be downstairs working. She's from Bristol Myers, where Paul Egbert worked for many, many years, but she helps doing a lot of things. She's retired, came here from New Jersey back home. Jan Howe has MB Deli, I usually call her Griddle. Pat Dorse is usually right around the corner here, and she has a T6 plane in the hangar. And we got I don't know where she is, but she's right around the corner. Alan Sanderson is hiding over here somewhere. There's Alan right here. He's going to be your speaker in a minute. John Dillon is on the board, and then who have I missed? I'm sure I missed somebody. John Foster Scott, he's in charge of Wesselman Park. And he's an advisor, he's a PhD in museumology, so that helps us try to do the right things at the right time for everybody. So before we get into our speakers, I'd like to just summarize a little bit what we're going to do today. You're going to see a lot of planes a little bit flying overhead, and we'll describe those a little bit later. Dr. Strancy's been our audio for that a little bit, and he'll follow through a little bit later. He's pretty good for extemporaneous jobs. So anyway, he will help a little bit later as well. But before we get on the program, this afternoon's program, we have 3 speakers. We have Alan Sanderson, right up here, P-47 pilot, a plane that was made in Evansville. And then we've got a guy named Raymond Clayton, and he's hiding here somewhere. Raymond is right here. He's talking. And the very last talker is Harold Morgan, and I saw him, so he's here somewhere. But let me just describe why these things are important and important to Evansville. Evansville in World War II, what we say on that manual over there, it says World War II changed Evansville and Evansville changed the world. By the time you're done today, hopefully you understand a little bit more about that. 330 different products made from our Evansville factories. We made it in a short period of time, from 42 to 45. Unbelievable capacity. We've got 26 what we call E awards. If you look at the symbol of our, right here, that looks like a little bit of an E, but the E award was given to only 4% of factories in the United States, and now we've got 26 of them. 14 different factories got these awards. That award was for excellence. So we have a lot of good workers, and there's a lot to be proud of. So what this museum is about is it's trying to resurrect memories and what we really did. The last 200 years, or the last 100 years, the next 100 years, it's probably the most significant thing that Evansville has done and will do in our lifetimes and in future lifetimes, to get together that many people in a short period of time and do a good job. So we have to be thankful for those people. Put in another 20 years, it's all going to be forgotten. So our mission is to try to make this understood by the next generation. There's not a lot of youngsters in here, so I learned most of my things from my mom and dad, so it's your job to teach your nephews, nieces, grandkids, and get them interested in these things. They learn most from you, more than somebody else and more from their teachers, so it's your job to get these kids interested in what we're trying to get across today. So the World War II was won by 3 things: machines, people, and logistics. You're seeing that with the Shrinersfest here, and World War II was 1 billion times bigger than that. So one of the machines we're going to talk about is Alan Sanderson going to get up and talk about the P-47, when he flew. And that was very important in World War II. He was the most important fighter plane in World War II. more kills more than anything else. Mustang gets a lot more press, but the P-47 was the most important plane. He'll talk a little bit about his experiences. He's 93. We're lucky to have him here. Okay, unbelievable to have somebody here. Second, Ray Clayton. 3 invasions of two in Italy and 1 in Normandy on the LST, like we made right here in Evansville, Indiana. Very important part of what was made. 167 LSTs made here more than anywhere in the world. We made 1,100 in the world, and we got the only one float in a military type of pattern right here in Evansville. The only one left. So we got to start. Now, the other person that's going to talk is, and Ray Clayton is a very good talker. He's going to talk about his experiences both in Italy and then over in Normandy. And the third person who will talk is Harold Martin. And I can't take my hat off enough to Harold Martin. I don't know where he's hiding now, but he's in here somewhere. Every time I walk into the library, he's walking out. Every library in town. I get out of Willard, I go to Evansville Library, and then you go to the museum, and then you go to USI. This guy is always coming outside. He's been doing that for 20 years. He's got 2 or 3 books up here, but he has collected things and photographed them, but then identified the importance of all these things over the last 20 years. He's done that from 1940 to 45, and his books are unbelievable. If we wouldn't have a person like that, we wouldn't have a lot of things that we have right now. So our mission is to try to collect items that are in your attics, in your backyards, or in your garages, and your ancestors or somebody's got them, and you're going to throw them away, your kids are going to throw them away. If there's anything made in World War II around here, paperwork, other things, we would like to see that and try to preserve it and try to show it to the public for future generations. So we need your time, talent, and treasures. So we'd like volunteers, we'd like people to be part of us. And we're inviting you all to do that today. Okay, so we're going to talk about, that's enough to summarize what's going on. So the P-47s are props. We've got 2 World War II planes here today. We got a Voltaire, and that was, if you look at Trainer, what Alan had to do to fly a plane, and Don Kuhlenspitz in the back, he had to fly a plane too. You have starts with an S. What's the name of that, Richard?
SNJ-5.
SNJ-5.
T6.
The first plane, the very first Trainer plane.
Stearman.
The Stearman is the first plane. It's a double wing, or 2 wings on it. Stearman is the first plane. Then the second one is what we have here today, a Voltaire. Then the third one is a T6, and then you get into your P-47. So most pilots went along that route. So the Voltaire is going to be flying a little bit. It's a prop plane. They made about 11,000 of those. The T6s, that we're going to see a couple of those today. That's a Trainer pilot. We've got one in our Pat Doris has one. We've got one in our museum. They made about 17,000 of those. A guy from Terrebonne is flying one around today. But those are prop planes. Hitler made a jet in 1939. He started in 39. He got it done in April 44. If he got done any sooner, we'd be in trouble. That goes about 100 miles faster than any of these prop planes today. So they had a tremendous advantage. He just got it too late. So it would have been a big problem for us. 100 miles an hour faster, and the plane is pretty fast. So this, what we're going to see a lot today, is the jet age, and that's because of what happened in 1944, because all of us had to catch up with Hitler and what was invented in World War II, or during that time. So what we're going to do is have our first speaker come up here. Our first speaker is going to be Alan Sanderson. Come on up here, Alan.
Testing 1, 2.
Nice crowd. Appreciate you coming out. Needless to say, I felt very good being when I was asked by Rich Litoff to join the group with the drive for our museum. It's a privilege to be involved with it. It's something that the city will be proud of. It'll be something that your children and your grandchildren will be able to know what happened during World War II. And needless to say, I think a lot of that has been forgotten. Quite frankly, I've forgotten a lot about it until Rich approached me. But the important thing is that Evansville contributed so much to the war. When you start and talking about the LSTs that Ray was on. They built 165 of those. And he was in 3 different invasions on the LST. And then they built the P-47s. About 6,500 of them were built here in Evansville. And I'll be the first to tell you that that was the best airplane in the service. It was proven to be that way, and later on the records will show that by far it outperformed all the other warbirds that we had. Glad to mention warbirds because, as you know, our museum representative went up to Indianapolis and managed to get the plane for Indiana named Warbird after the P-47. So we've got a lot going. Quite frankly, I'd forgotten an awful lot about the service and everything else, like most people, until Rich approached me, and then all the worms started coming out of the wood. When you think about over 6,000 planes being built here, though, and all the other things that were built, like 96% of the ammunition that was used came from Evansville. Over 3 billion .45 caliber bullets were made in Evansville. So you got a lot to be proud of. I didn't know where Evansville was until I moved here, but I've learned a lot about it in the last 2 years. Get back to the 47. I think I was introduced to the P-47 down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And all I can remember is I looked out and thought, man, that's an awful lot of airplane. It weighed 7 tons, empty. And after about 20 hours, maybe 25, we were shipped overseas, and we went over to North Africa, and from North Africa we moved into Italy, and in Italy we took the first 20 P-47s that were used in the Mediterranean theater. Before that, they were using the old P-40s, which is the same plane that they used in Flying Tigers and everything else. That was the first really warbird we had. But the 47 proved to be the best plane that you could have. We used it primarily for dive bombing and strafing. It was originally meant for escort work, for B-24s and B-17s. But believe me, I don't think I got over 10,000 feet the whole time I was overseas. Most of our work was 5,000 feet and under, and most of it under. Great airplane to fly, very dependable. It would bring you back more times than you could ever think about. Brought me back 118 times, so I think it's a pretty good plane. Any questions?
Any questions? I can field them out here. Questions we can.
Oh, here.
Gentlemen, over the question.
Tell them about the time that your
Testing.
plane got hit.
Tell them about the time your plane got hit and they said, Sandy, parachute out.
Oh, yeah. We were flying up over northern Italy, and anti-aircraft guns were peppering us up pretty good. And I got a pretty good hit in the left wing, right in the ammunition box. And the 50 calibers were all laying out on the wing, pointing at the cockpit, of course. And there was a little fire in the wing. And that didn't bother me much, as the fact that the airplane would only turn left. It wouldn't turn any other way but left. It had no instruments. Anyway, make a long story short, my wingman got on my wing and called out airspeed, and we did left turns and gained on it a little bit every time we turned, and got all the way back down to Corsica and landed. So that was a thriller, but showing you that that airplane was ready to bend. It'd bring you back.
Other question?
Tell them about the tower.
Yeah.
The tower, Leaning Tower of Pisa, I think.
Well, this so happened about 3 days before I got the wing beat up. We were at the same area, and we were really getting peppered. And I could see that there was a gun emplacement right at the foot of this tall, white-looking building. And you know, at 20 years old, you don't have a lot of history behind you. You didn't learn about that anyway. So I said, well, I called in, I said, hey guys, hang on, I'm going down and take out that gun emplacement because he's giving us too much trouble. And about 2 seconds later, Wayne came in, he said, Sandy, I don't think I'd do that. I think that's a Leaning Tower of Pisa. So I could have been famous or infamous. But the sad part was that was the same, almost the same gun emplacement that put the hole in my wing 3 days later. Anything else?
Any other questions? Yeah. Go ahead, speak. Yeah.
Alan, did you have any fun that you can talk about when you were over there?
Mr. Bray wanted to know if Alan had any fun. Closer to the microphone, Alan.
Some of it I can't talk about. We were like anybody else. We went on missions and we enjoyed it. We knew it had to be done. If it was on the ground and moving, you took it out. In a way it was fun, but you knew it was something you were supposed to be doing. You wouldn't want to do that every day. I have to tell you a little story. We were flying over Italy, north of Rome, and we kept seeing this big farm. Now this is right in the middle of the war. And this guy was putting up, he had 10 or 15 horses, good-looking horses laying out in the farm. He was putting up a real fancy barn, really nice. And we got to thinking, well, why is he putting it, here's a war going on, people are starving supposedly, and he's putting up a big fancy barn. Well, we were sleeping in tents and we needed a clubhouse. So we took a big army truck, and about 5 of us, and went over at night and dismantled his barn as he put it up, and came back and built ourselves a squadron. That wasn't good for public relations at all.
We didn't tape that out. Anybody else questions? Okay. It's just amazing to have a P-47 pilot right here. Out of so you made all these planes, and just to have somebody to tell a real live experience, it's just out of body experience. So thank you very much, Alan. Okay, I missed 2 things on the agenda, so before we get to Ray Clayton, we got to do 2 other things here. Number 1, I didn't tell you that we have the honor flight people here, but they were here. They're here this morning. If anybody wants to go on honor flight, you can sign up with them. They've got all the paperwork, and it's a very nice thing. If you look at the history of honor flight type things, you go to the Civil War. Civil War ended, I guess, in 1865, but in 1938, they did a similar type of process where they, FDR and other people, they got a train that took all the Civil War veterans. So most of these guys were all in their 90s, took them to Gettysburg. And there were about 3,000 Northerners and 1,500 Southerners, but they were all way up there. So it was a summertime process. Now they're taking planes. So you get to the Evansville Airport and get out to Washington, D.C. and see the monuments. And I went last time, and Richard went one time, and some of other board members have gone, and it's a very nice experience, and it's something we can give back to our veterans. So these gentlemen and ladies are over here in the corner, and they're in the cafeteria. So I'm sure all of you will make the cafeteria. It's right by the bar. And the other thing I forgot, the gentleman up here, the 11 out of 15 retired veterans, we were supposed to do one more musical element, and as usual, I forgot that. But they're going to do that for us now. There's no real symbolism, but they got a duet. And so, front and center, or whatever we want to do here. Do. So the sequence is wrong, and then we're going to have Ray Clayton up next. Then we're going to have Harold Morgan, because then the air show is going to start in a little bit, about 3. So we don't wish any of the air shows. So we want to have a little bit more talking before that time. If you can't hear in the back, you need to raise your hands, because we can always get closer to the microphone or this other microphone, but you have to tell us if you can't hear. Don, I want to see your hand. We got a World War II vet in the back. Don Coolensby just gave us a plane, experimental plane, so he's a World War II vet. He's only 94. So got some seniority here. Okay.
Detail teacher. Present hard.
If you would, I'd like to see you stand up, please. Get on.
Order, pause. Dismiss.
Take your seats. TAPS was created in the Civil War. Prior to the Civil War, we didn't have TAPS, but it was written in the Civil War, and we've had that at many funerals and many other events since that time. So our next speaker is a person that floated on an LST. Floated on an LST that was made in Evansville, Indiana. Evansville, Indiana made 167, as you heard earlier. There were 1,100 made in World War II. Made right over here, where the people from Bristol Myers, there's a little place where there's about 45 acres at Bristol Myers over there, and that's where they were all made. They pushed them in the water, and they had to outfit them more and send them down to New Orleans. They only had a 7-foot drag in the back and about a 1.5 in the front, empty, so it could get down the Ohio River. The Ohio River was only 8 feet through all the locks and dams until they changed in about 1969. But from 32 on, it was a 8-foot pool stage. So that's how they didn't have a lot of drag. All the other ships really about a 15-foot drag or more. So we were called cornfield LSTs. We made over 500 cornfield LSTs because we were worried about hitting the shores. The subs were all over our shores. We were worried about the submarines getting us. So we didn't want to make all of our firepower on the coast, so we made some on the inland. So this gentleman, none of them were defective, and you think of typhoons. My dad was on one for 4 years, and he had a test out in New Orleans, down out in the Caribbean, and he said he about thought he was going to die there because they didn't tie everything down. Those jeeps are floating around in a typhoon, and I mean, a Jeep would kill you floating around that ship. So, but these ships were built well, and Ray Clayton's going to get up here and tell you a few things. Ray? Ray's probably only 93. I'm not sure on his age, but he's pushing that. You want this microphone, Ray, or you want the other one? Okay, you gotta get close, so I'll just hold it here. That will not be close. Okay, you take care of
I was 94 yesterday. I'm sure that every person here has read in their Bible about hell. On D-Day, September the 9th, 1943, all hell broke loose on the land, sea, and air in Salerno Bay, Italy. Some of the older maps listed as Salerno Bay, but newer maps this is Salerno Beach. It was a beautiful beach. White sand, stretched about 2 miles. A great vacation place, not only for people of Italy, but all over, almost all over the world. Go to southern Italy. LSTs, floating ships of any kind. There was 4,000 of them. There were 5,000 planes. Now, if you don't think hell broke loose, you should have been there. Nobody should have been there. But I was there, not by choice. On LST 157. 157 was the very first LST built in Evansville, Indiana. When the keel was laid in October of 1942 for LST 157, I was on the invasion of North Africa. I'm trying to think of the name of it. A famous movie was made there.
Casablanca.
No, we were in Algiers. Well, that's all right. It'll come to me when I go to bed tonight. But it was kind of a pushover invasion. I was on an old World War I ship that had one gun on it, a 9-inch gun, and we didn't even fire. There were only 6 sailors on there. But we got in and out of there in time. I guess about the most exciting thing was the famous writer from Indiana that wrote all the stories, war stories. He was there. Nobody knows the name? Well, I didn't write it. Ernie Pyle, just up the road a little ways here. He was there. I came back to the United States, went to New Orleans to teach gunnery school. And a few days after I was there, well, about 6 months or so, they told me I was going to catch a ship in New Orleans. And that turned out to be the 157, made in Evansville, Indiana, my hometown. We got to Salerno Bay, and there was no room for us to get to the beach. The LST-158, the sister ship, had gone in ahead of us and hit 2 landmines and blew all to hell. There was 121 sailors on that ship and 8 officers. There was only 1 person survived that terrible blast. We had to wait. And while we were waiting, they said, we got to get these men. We had about 100 soldiers. They were British soldiers. Had been in North Africa for Rommel and Patton was fighting it out. Of course, Rommel, the Desert Fox, he foxed him all right. We lost a lot of men right there in North Africa. A lot of people don't know that. They said, we got to get these men on shore. They're needed bad. The Germans are almost pushing our soldiers back. So they put the Higgins boat on one side and Higgins boat on the other side. And I could drive a Higgins boat, so they loaded the Higgins boat with about 40 men in there and their gear. They were loaded down with gear, about 80 pounds is what they carried. Go very slowly towards the beach. A lot of dead men. Had to try to get around them, but really couldn't get around them. A lot of young boys, 18, 19, 20 years old. They were wounded. They were drowning. They were calling help, calling for help, screaming for help. They were trying to get a hold of Higgins' boat. There was no place to get hold of the Higgins boat. They couldn't hold on. I heard a lot of those young boys screaming for mother or for father. I heard a lot of those young boys praying. this day and age, maybe wonder back, I do a lot of programs in the churches and schools, all over. It's something I wrote myself. Ellen Sanderson has heard it. And I thought about when I was doing programs in churches. It's not a good thought. I thought about those young men calling for God, calling for help, praying. I wonder how many, not a good thought now, I wonder how many of those young boys even know what the inside of a church house looks like. That's a bad thought, isn't it? You know why? I go to these churches and do my program. I look around, and my church is the same way. We have about 180 to 200 in my church. We probably got 5 or 6 young boys that are 18 or 19, 20. I go to another church, I look around, the same thing. So it made my thoughts go back to these young boys. Now they're turning to God. But it's too late to turn to God. They're wounded, they're dying, they're drowning. You strap about 80 pounds on you, you can't swim very well. On the second day, late in the evening, something came through the air. It was not a cloud in the sky. But it broke the sound barrier. It rocked the ocean. It rocked our ships. It split our head wide open. Our ears, we couldn't hear a thing. The radio man ran to the radio operator, got on the radio and he found out that they were pushing our boys back in the sea. So they called in a battleship. The battleship was sitting off about there 4 or 5 miles back there and turned loose a blast from an 18-inch gun. Do you know what an 18-inch gun is? That's this big round shell. 18 inches in diameter. Well, they had somebody on the beach that was a spotter. Around this beautiful bay, about 2 miles away, was hills. And the Germans had loaded those hills with big guns and mortars. And when our men got inshore about a mile or so, they unloaded on them. So they had to take back order and wait on us to unload our people. They could get to the beach. Probably about 10 minutes after that first shell went off, there was another one. Shakes the whole earth. Have you ever been within 10 feet or 15 feet of a lightning strike? You know what I'm talking about, if you have. On a battleship, they have a turret that has two 18-inch guns in that turret. Right beside that turret, they had two more, another turret with two 18-inch guns in it. Well, the spotter, I'm sure, told them how many degrees this way, how many degrees that way, how many degrees this way. And they turned loose the second one. No more than a second turned loose. The one and the other turret turned loose. Now they had to wait a little while. Can't do it in succession. An 18-inch guns, if the barrel is like this, and that 18 gun goes off, it recoils 7 feet. Goes up.
Just the planes are starting, we've got to move the planes, is all, and I promise you, see, this is a MiG-17, it's not been in town before. It's a MiG-17 that's flying out there. Well, I just, and they got to be able to see that too. Apologize, but maybe another couple minutes.
That plane, that gun on that 18-inch recoils about 7 feet. And it drops down. And they have to wait before they can fire the other gun until it comes back up. And all done electrically. I want to tell you what, then they brought in Then they brought in a cruiser, and our cruiser had 16-inch guns on it. So we better watch this plane.
Thank you, Ray. They're starting to have the air show. If you saw that plane, that was what was a Russian plane. That was the MiG-17 that flew by. And that plane is, there he is coming again somewhere, but that's a MiG-17 was the nemesis for about 6 of our planes in the Vietnam War. It's a very versatile plane. It gave us every challenge possible. So that plane, not very many of them left, but that was a formidable opponent until we came out with plane in '74. But all during the Vietnam era, that was a very tough opponent. They did not have radar, but they had a little bit more speed, a little more versatility. So right now we've got, Harold's got to get his stuff set up. I'm going to go ahead and let people take a break and get something to drink and eat, and then Harold's going to talk. So I'll let him talk for about 15 or 20 minutes. You can watch your planes and get something to eat, get some drink.
And we celebrate that. We still have a lot of work to discover and learn really what Evansville did, because so much is forgotten. But that's our role, that's our mission. And then we want to honor and remember all those that served on the home front, the Rosie the Riveters, and there's a number of them that have been here today, as well as our World War II veterans that helped protect our freedoms. So we are wrapping up today, and one of our most noted historians, and actually my personal best resource for all what we have done on our brochures, images, and whenever we need to confirm some of the statistics and the correct information, really comes from Harold Morgan, and he has done this on his own dime, his own time, and Evansville and our community cannot thank Harold enough for what he's doing. So he's going to tell you a little bit more about the history of Evansville. So Harold. Come on up.
Thank you, Rick. I'm honored to be in your presence. All of you veterans saved my life, and I'm honored by it. I also want to thank your spouses and your children, because I know how much that means to you. But I want to tell you, this is all about you guys today, men and women. As we go through this, I want to talk about Evansville during World War II, and I like to roam money. Can you deal with that if I move around? Are you sure?
Yes.
If you have questions as we go through this, don't hesitate. Don't be bashful. I have no notes. It's all on the screen, and I'll be happy to come back and get your question and answer. This slide that's up here tells you about more about Evansville in World War II than I'm going to tell you. When World War II happened, Evansville became the most productive per capita, I got to tell you, per capita city on earth. I think certainly in America, and I don't know of any town in Germany or Japan that made more than what Evansville did for the population. And you can see up here where Evansville literally went by a multiplier of 4, quadrupled its employment. And of course, that's people, that's families, that's dogs, that's cats, that's everything that came to Evansville in 1 year. If you look at it, they had 18,000 workers when Pearl Harbor happened. And these numbers come out of the papers, newspapers. I'm a newspaper historian, so everything I know is out of the newspapers essentially. But look what happened 1 year later, 80,000 people. That's 4 times.
Amazing.
The government was awfully smart. They dictated that if a plant could not be producing war goods by December 31st, 1942, stop it. And they did that. Plants that were being built in September, October, they couldn't be finished by December 31st. They stopped them. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Look what happened. Look what Evansville did with what they had in that 1 year. This is the Red Cross canteen. Anybody ever go in that?
Yes.
Wow.
I played tap for the opening of it.
Did you really? 1941. Never closed the door, never locked the door, night and day. This was one of Evansville's most remarkable things. Somebody else over here did that. Let me tell you this. This became Evansville College, ROTC building. I didn't know this till a couple of years ago. I had classes in that building at Evansville College. Anybody do that?
Susie.
That was it. Both wings went to Evansville College, and that was where it ended up. But this was just such a great thing. And Evansville was very famous. See, we were at the crossroads, north, south, east, west railroad tracks. And these women see the L&M depot, that's the backside of it, and the train. And these women are serving the soldiers that are in the train. They cannot go on a train. That would be bad. They would serve them through the windows. If they had to go on, men would do that. I think they could go on to trains if it was a hospital train or something special. And if any of you guys went on a train to your duty in World War II or wherever, you didn't get off that train. You were locked on. You got guards on there with weapons and everything. So they fed you. You had your toilets on there. But these women served those trains, and it was around the clock, night and day. And when the women came in that morning, men and women came in that morning, they didn't know what they served for lunch. But come in. Communities would collect and use their wagons. My mother-in-law did that. She lived on Maryland Street, and she would get her little red wagon about once a month when they got the sugar rations, and she'd make a cake or a pie or what have you, and she would take that little red wagon and put my wife in there, and they'd go to the Red Cross canteen. And as they were walking, women would come out and give more to add to it. And that's the way the town worked at. Chrysler Ordnance Bullet Plant, this picture's out on the wall. The thing I want to tell you is Chrysler had 2,600 machines operating around the clock. By the way, everything in Evansville ran 7 days a week. By law, you could not produce anything but war goods. You could not. It was all about World War II. So they had to work 7 days a week at these plants. Chrysler worked 8-hour shifts, three 8-hour shifts every day, 7 days a week. My father worked at Republic Aviation. They had 5 days at 10-hour shifts, and then weekends they got a break and they only worked 8-hour days. But it was by law. You had to do that. You couldn't do anything else but make military products. So what they're making are bullets, and notice the tables. They're wood. Wood went to war. You couldn't build a house. You couldn't get the nails. You couldn't get a permit. And of course, you look at all of this. Look at all the lumber that's in that building, and that's the way it was. They didn't have time to get metal. They didn't have time to get the steel rolled and formed and everything. Wood was here and available, and they put all of these machines on that. Sunbeam had 600 machines in their plant, and they were subservient to the Chrysler plant to make the bullets. Yeah. Did anybody serve in the Pacific in World War II? Did you ever use a can like that? These were bullet cans. Chrysler had been shipping the paper boxes with bullets, and they would load them into wood boxes and ship them over to Europe and where have you. But when they shipped them out into the Pacific Theater, General MacArthur said, and this was 1943, he said, I've got to have a better bullet because my soldiers are dying from jammed rifles, jammed pistols. You got salt, you got the vermin, you got the fungus, you got all of that stuff. The Japanese rifles are also jamming, but that was a good thing, huh? So they made these. These were hermetically sealed cans filled with bullets. And they had, remember how you used to open your coffee can with a turnkey? And that's how the soldiers opened these cans. Did you ever see one? I haven't. Did you ever open one?
Yes, I have.
And that's where it was. That's where it came from. Did you know it was in Evansville? There you go. These are African Americans. Notice that. Chrysler hired 10% roughly African Americans. They paid the same as the white employees, and they were segregated in that plant. They had their own janitor, and the whites had their own janitors, but still, Chrysler was the only Evansville plant that looked at winning the war using what they had available. The other plants tended to make African Americans janitors and subservients and things like that, but not Chrysler. They went right at it. These were, when they got through building the bullets, Chrysler rebuilt almost 1,700 tanks right out there at the plant. The test track is still there. You can find it. I'll explain that in a moment. They would take the tanks and take everything they take 100% apart, and they would load the hull and the turret onto rail cars and take them downtown, right over there to George Cookins Company, where they would rebuild. See the patch, see the thickened armor, see the patch. That's what George Cook would weld onto those tanks. Right over here where whatever it's called now. That's the way they would do it. Take them back out to Chrysler and they'd put them together. These were These were P-47 test pilots. And they came down to Chrysler one day to drive the tanks. So those are P-47. Now these are civilian. I'll explain the military test pilots in a moment. These are the civilian test pilots that you see. They did the first work. They had to fly them, and when they flew the P-47s, they had to stress them as much or more than they would be stressed in combat. So this was not a lackadaisical, let's go and test pilot of an airplane. They would put them in every stress that they would see in combat. And that was pretty right. There were several pilots died right here in the area during World War II. Hoosier Cardinal. Hoosier Cardinal made several things. They made the tail assemblies, vertical and horizontal stabilizers for the P-47s. I'll show you some gun turret domes they also made. Hoosier Cardinal was quite a plant during World War II. How old are these guys? They're children. They're children. During World War II, you were allowed to work in the war plants 24 hours a week if you were 14 years old. Remember the child labor laws that they ended all of that around 1912, 1940? They brought it back. When you were 1 year older, you could work 4 more hours. So you ended up when you were, 17 or 18, you could work 40-hour weeks. Bah! They did it anyhow. I know these kids were working 40-hour weeks, 50-hour weeks. They wanted to win the war. They wanted to get their dad home, their uncles home, their brothers home as badly as the mom and dad did. But these This is the way it was all through Evansville. Here they are. Now notice, these are young people. And that's a horizontal stabilizer they're working on. These women, see, they're more their senior, the mothers maybe, and they're working on domes. Hoosier Cardinal was one of the only plants on earth. They had been in plastics before the war began, and they just stayed in making plastics. And these are those precious bomb domes on your B-24s, your B-25s, such as the B-32. Republic Aviation, which is why I came to Evansville when I was 6 years old. Dad hired on Republic, and this was the way it worked. Republic was just like Toyota is today, just exactly. It's called just in time. You don't want a bunch of engines for the P-47s. You don't want 100 engines. At the end of the war, Republic was building 10 P-47s per day. They might have exceeded that every now and then, might have made a little less. So they had 10 engines. That's all they wanted. When they started the day, 10 airplanes came through, they'd attach 10 engines, and away they go. Same thing with the tails, the wheels, and whatever. So this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's assembly line. And I'm not sure how they moved these, but they're all going towards the north end of the plant. And see the women with the rivet guns, grill guns, and such. But this is one of my, can you see this picture? The light is kind of getting on it. It tells you so much. The men, the top 1,000, this was called the Tojo Special. And Republic wanted to fly this P-47 on December the 7th, 1943. That's to celebrate Tojo's special anniversary. So they made it, and this was the top of number 1,000. Count the women, and they're riveting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this was loud. This was loud. There was like 400 people riveting right in this mass together, right in here, just like you are here. This is the way they were working, all packed in together. Guess how many women are down underneath that? With a 40 watt or 25 watt. There's 6 women underneath that fuselage, bucking, B-U-C-K-I-N-G, bucking those rivets to make it the head underneath. Ain't that something? Now let's remember, they're working 10-hour days. And I'm sure they stayed under there a lot longer than they had to. But you know, nature calls, and they had to do those things. But this was life for those women. I'd a lot rather work on the top side than the bottom side. I don't know if they swapped or what they did. I don't know how that worked. Now here's 5 Army pilots. The test pilots that were civilians would make the first flights of the P-47s, and they would perfect it. When they had flown, and there was 10 of them, 11 of them in that picture. There's 5 Army pilots here, and they go out and test it, and if they accept it, the Army buys it, and it's shipped out. Notice they've got their scratch boards on their right hand, and so on their right leg. See the pencils they got? This guy, that's his girl. This man I know died later after the war flying, testing jets. The other ones were pretty famous. The Evansville airport manager was a sometimes test pilot. He would fly when he had things to do, and they wanted guys to do that. You know, wartime, you broke the rules back in wartime to produce better. No questions so far? These are ferry pilots, all women. Look at them. They had gone to Sweetwater, Texas to learn to fly airplanes, and they worked with a single light aircraft to fly. But I count and there's different uniforms. See, some of the women are different uniforms. But these are the WASP, the WAFs, and whatever that is. And these were different ferry groups. And they would take the P-47s as well as the other airplanes, whatever they had. They could fly from Evansville to New York, the East Coast, with 1 or 2 stops for fuel and what have you. Going west, it might take a day or 2 to do that. When they flew them into the Pacific, early on, they were loading them onto just cargoes. That's how they took them to England. Load them down in the hull and put some on deck. It was clumsy, but we were doing the best we could do. Later on, they used Jeep carriers to carry them from California to the Pacific, to Hawaii, and they might take them off and reload them again later on. And there's a great story of the 74 Evansville-built P-47s that went to Saipan and fought. I'm running out of time. Mark, is anyone speaking after me? Am I it? Can I have more than 20 minutes? If I got 15 minutes, just told me. Okay, Salvation Army. This is one of my favorite pictures too. This is at 5th and Main, and the Salvation Army parked this truck at 5th and Main every day, every week, to service the soldiers. That's the hub. That sign is still there, by the way. It's been painted over now twice. But did you ever go in the hub? Big and tall men. The Majestic Theater was right here. The old Central Library was right down the street. And of course, they're looking at the Victory. The Salvation Army would cook this stuff and bring it out there on the weekends around the clock to service, and see the guys got their donuts in this case and coffee. They could get hot dogs in the afternoon and evening. It was all free. This place was integrated. There were 3 integrated places in Evansville. The canteen that you saw, this truck, spaghetti bowl restaurant. Anybody ever eat spaghetti bowl? I never did. That was integrated. If you walked in the spaghetti bowl restaurant and it was owned by 2 men, families, with uniform, you got a free meal. Can you believe that? I'm so surprised with, how heroic that was. Men and women, you walked in uniform, you didn't pay. And I thought, my God, what patriotism that is to do that for your soldier boy. So anyhow, this was integrated, and the soldiers would get off the train at the L&N station where the Red Cross canteen was, and they head for the USO. That's where the boys would always go. So I like the picture. Here's a woman serving, but look at this little girl. She's 7 or 8, 9 years old. She's serving the war effort by just being there. But that's the way it was. The kids had fathers and brothers and uncles, and the kids were as much in the war as their mom and dad, not as much as the soldiers were. But it was back home, and this was how it worked. Servell Refrigerator Company. This is a picture of people were always doing things during World War II to raise funds, war bonds in this case. These are the grandmothers. Servell had America's largest grandmothers club with 248 members. That was Servell, which was 15,000 employees, by the way, at this time. Servell was a giant. They built all of the P-47 wings, and I'll show you something else they made in just a moment. So they took this see the P-47 wing? It was on wheels, and they rolled it around through the plant, and people put their dollar bills on it to buy war bonds. They got $1,500 worth of $1, $5 bills, what have you, on there, so they bought that many war bonds. This was always the way it worked during World War II. All right, quiz. These women are working at Servell. Those are 40 millimeter canisters. 40 millimeters, some of you guys fire that? Sunbeam made 37 millimeters, which went to the Army. This 40s went on ship. The LST down there has 8 guns that fire these canisters. No bullets, just a canister, the cartridge case, if you would. See this woman over here is deburring the neck of it. And see this woman here is testing that, and those of you who've seen that don't give away. Now that I've told you, can you tell that woman is blind? Ain't that something? Wow. That's a blind woman working at a war plant, 40 hours a week. She doesn't need to see, she's just feeling it for birds. And if there's a bird, I guess the women will take it back and reprocess it. Evansville Shipyard, this was taken at the Armory on Rotherwood. They had a big show out there one weekend in 1943, and you couldn't hardly find a place to get in. It was so crowded. People wanted to go see what was happening, so they had Republic Aviation, the shipyard, everything that Evansville was making could fit in there. So this was the shipyard welding booths, and this was some of the young women that were welding. I'm not sure what the guys were, but that was right down there where they all worked, just right there. And you notice that there's 3 young women here that look very, very young. and a couple are not. But notice they've all got their collars because they're welding in those booths. So they've got your collars. Did anybody in here weld? You got welders in? I know some of you have. Burns done it horribly so. You know, that white metal sometimes gets around your neck or up your sleeve or in your pants, and all you can do is just tough it out. So I noted they've all got their collars tied up and everything. These were trial run cooks. Every LST that left down here, it would come up the river on, this was well planned, and, you know, it was fully operated, and it would go up the river, past the Green River, and this would take a day. And it did things there, things here, and they were just like those P-47s. They would stress these LFTs to their very limit. You know, turn out here. I've been on 325 when she would turn, and it's kind of violent when she turns in there. She come down here and turn in front of the riverfront and go back up. Well, it's right here, and go back home. So that's what they would do when they were doing it. But everything was tested, and there was always a contest, especially Camp Breckenridge, to get their officers to go on a test run. It was a thing of great honor to get to go. So there were several civilians and military people would ride on the LST on the test run, and they had to test the kitchen gear. So in the U.S. Navy, the stewards were African Americans, so that's what the shipyard did. They hired these men. They were the trial run cooks. And later on, that changed. You know what? That was a pretty good job, but it was demeaning because white men weren't allowed to do that, weren't asked to do it. The USO. This was the African American USO. This was at Belmead Park on Lincoln Avenue. You know, it used to be this building was an orphanage, white orphanage, before the war. So what you have here, notice there are several Air Force insignias. Air Force is a big deal here. You may not know that. Sturgis Army Airfield was U.S. Air Force, and they were having, they bragged of 1,000 landings per day at Sturgis. They were coming largely out of George Army Airfield, which was Lawrenceville, sometimes Vincennes, and they had 154 twin-engine airplanes, and that's where they trained 10 twin-engine pilots for DC-3s, B-17, multi-engine pilots. So they were also having 1,000 landings per day, and I've seen that the Evansville Airport had about 1,000 landings per day. I don't think it's happening to that as we speak, but anyhow, that's where these guys may have come from. They may have come in on a train passing through, I don't know. Here was a white USO. This is a great picture. And notice the dress. Can you see the dress these young women are wearing? These are gorgeous. I'm talking about what they're wearing. By the way, see the ball up there? Do you know where that is now? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Swerka. In a big room at Swerka, that's where that ball is. It came out of the USO after the war. I fretted about that, and somebody said, well, Harold, that's in the U.S., it's in Swerka. So I went out there, sure enough, it hangs down in that big room where they have their dinner meals. But notice the women, and I'll miss it because the endearment that you're seeing, the girls, the young girls to the soldiers. And these girls had to train. They had to be trained in how to operate with military men who were going to fight. You didn't want to say, are you homesick, you miss your girl. These girls were taught to uplift these young men. But if you look up here in endearment, I'll miss holding hands, holding hands. Can you see him holding hands? His arms on her waist, holding hands. These are total strangers, I guess. At one time or another they were. The name I have down here is Shirley Toon. And Shirley was a dancing. Are there any dancing girls in here? Huh? Did you really? Were you in this? Thank you. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I said, were you a dancing girl? You know, that's a thing to me, a great honor. So look at their outfits. These are polished young women, and they're all high school or central. Did we have balls? Yeah, we had balls at that time, Wrights. maybe Memorial. That's where they all came from, and they're all decked out, and this is the way it was on Friday nights and Saturday nights. Through the week, the USO was open, but you had different kind of entertainment. These were girls at Republic Aviation, and they're getting ready to go to Camp Breckenridge probably, but they could have gone to Camp Campbell. I don't think they went to Fort Knox, but these were all interchangeable. George Army Airfield had a special place at Vincennes that serviced him. And these are the organizations now were called the Business Girls, Girls Service Organization, Office Civil Defense Cadets, and Serval Girls. And what they were there for was to go to Camp Breckenridge and dance with the boys on Sunday afternoon. And that's where this bus is going, unless it's going to Fort Campbell or somewhere like that. My last picture. There's a story here. Do you know the story? Do you know this woman? Do you know she came to Evansville? Astar at a contest in, correct me if I'm wrong, 2002. They had a military display out there. They had a tank and some trucks and Jeeps on their front yard. Anybody remember that?
Yes.
They brought this girl in town. Everybody knows who she was. They know her name. So they brought her in here and they advertised nationally for somebody that claimed to be this sailor. And they brought 5 guys in, and she interviewed, they went in a locker room one at a time. Cameras, Channel 14, 25 were there to film this. I don't know if you remember it or not. But they filmed it, and she asked, this woman asked those phonies one question. She said, what did you say to me after you kissed me? They were all liars, cheats, and frauds. Because they had this, the sailor, when that was done, he just walked away. He was mute, said no words whatsoever. So she knew she had a trickster. But yeah, that was the way that worked. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, let me do this. This is final exam for you. Now somebody's going to give the answer to this question. I love to show this. This is August 1945. The war in Europe is over. It ended in May. And I don't know if this is before Japan surrendered. You know, that took 3 or 4 days to do that. But they're all lined up. Can you see? They're coming around the block here. They're going to the Belk Henderson store. Women are coming around. There's a few kids in here. There's only 1 or 2 men. Why are they there?
Cigarettes.
First, we buy nylon stockings.
What'd you say?
Nylon stockings.
Oh, he has it right. They got a shipment of nylon stockings. And I know somebody else had that. Actually, you're pretty good. Men don't usually get that. But anyhow, that's what they're there for. They're lined up to get nylons was really important. I'll prove it with this picture. You've seen and heard of that. It really did happen for this. The painting, you know, women couldn't get nylon, so they would paint with mascara. What do you girls use?
Eyebrow pencil.
Did they have pencils? Did they have eye pencils? That's what they used to do then instead of drawing them. That's my show. You didn't have a single question. You got questions now?
Wow, I never knew that. What did you know? I never knew that, what they drew.
Thank you very
They
much.
did this when we were little.
The guy just walked up to her, he didn't even talk to her, he just grabbed her and did it.
Yeah.
Say your name, Charlie. That's good. Tell me your name. Tell me your name.
Test.
He said to tell my name. I don't know if I want to tell my name when I tell this story. This is going back to Serval Wing Plant during the war. Now you have to understand that it's primarily all women working there, and most of the women working there have never made any money before. So they were making good money where they have never made money. Well, the big problem was to have them show up every day. And this was a real problem, attendance. So what could they come up with? You know, offer bonuses, different, doesn't work. And someone came up with an idea, and it was a tremendous idea. And if you had perfect attendance every day of the month for work, that you would get a portrait of yourself by a photographer And that worked for months and months and months, that these women would get to partner to themselves.
Yeah,
And I think that's pretty cool.
that's interesting.
One other thing, it was showing me the women pilots. Josie Orr, who was Bob Orr's wife, who was governor of our state, was one of those women. Thank you. I'm not telling my name.
May I tell you one more female hardship, male hardship? And you won't believe this, I guess, but you should. There was so much, people would take their garage and turn it into a bedroom upstairs and maybe 2 beds downstairs. If they had room up in the house, they would turn it into however many people they could bring in. But young women had the hardest, the female, the ferry pilots, they had an apartment they could go to somewhere around North Main, around Garvin Park, and Republic would drive them in there. But when a woman would go to the door, and here was the ad, apartment for rent, and she would knock on the door, and the wife would come and open it, no. She didn't want that woman in her house, and you can understand that. But it worked the same way the other way. If a young man came to the door, young, husky guy, better than me, and the man answered the door and he wanted to rent a room, the man would say, that was just the way things were. So lodging for out of town business, you know, women were coming from, my God, Illinois, Kentucky. They said that Hopkins County moved to Detroit. And you know, a lot of people did. You remember after World War II, there was all these stories about Michigan having so many Kentuckians there, and Indian Hoosiers and all that. But that was the way things were. They had great difficulty in finding apartments. That was, seems unfair, but I think that's human nature. That's just the way that went. Well, I thank you very much. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you very much, Harold. And thank all of you for being here today. This is going to be the end of our event today. I think we have here until 5 o'clock. You're more than welcome to stay, watch the sunset. Right, well, you stay around until 5. Yes, this is the longest day of the year, so you stay around and have set for a while. Thank you. So have a good Shrinefest, and see you next year for the 4th annual. Be good.